this week's On the Beat segment brought to you by Ingles Supermarkets. And this week we preview Georgia versus Georgia Tech. Game is at noon on Saturday at Sanford Stadium. It's going to be on the SEC Network. And of course, as always, you can hear it on radio on WSB 750 AM and 95.5 FM. Well, the Bulldogs coming off a 66-27 victory over UMass that was easier in many respects than maybe I expected. Of course, defensively, not their best performance, and that was something that I know Kirby Smart not real thrilled about at halftime, as Georgia gave up more than 120 yards rushing in the first half against the Minutemen, and now you've got the nation's #1 rushing team coming to Sanford Stadium. Georgia Tech averaging 353.7 yards per game. Yellow Jackets also fifth in the country in time of possession, just a little over 34 minutes per game. So it does put an emphasis on the type of start that Georgia gets off to this week. I asked Kirby Smart about it. He kind of joked around a little bit and said, I try to lead every game by multi-scores. He said he doesn't go into any game trying to play it close. But obviously, when you play a team that's going to essentially shrink the game, shrink the number of possessions, there is a little bit more of a priority on your efficiency. You know, whereas Georgia had 7 first-half possessions against UMass, I think Alabama had like 4 in their game against the Citadel on Saturday. And, of course, the Citadel, another option team. And for those of you that might have missed it, the Citadel played Alabama to a 10-10 tie on Saturday in Tuscaloosa by running the option. It requires a different type of defensive mindset, where most teams, it's all about swarming immediately to the ball. The option forces a defender to be patient and play his assignment before running to the ball. So ball pursuit is still very important, but assignment football is very important as well. You have to kind of guard against the backside. You have to be careful. Georgia Tech, the preeminent option team in the country. Paul Johnson is regarded as the expert, not an expert, the expert. He's able to make adjustments on the fly as he's watching the game based on how you're defending the option. Georgia Tech can adjust from one snap to the next, and there's a lot of different ways that they can play option football. It's all pretty technical, and I can tell Kirby doesn't like getting in all the details of it, but he said more than once there is zero carryover to how Georgia plays defensive football for a regular opponent to how they play it against Georgia Tech. So the Ingles on the Beat segment, and if you're watching this, you're on DawgNation.com. It is a Q&A format. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask. Byron Walker, I guess we'll just start out with, the Justin Fields praise. It certainly was newsworthy, and I know a lot of Georgia fans are very excited about the future with Justin. We've all talked about what type of arm strength and athleticism that he's had, but hadn't really got to see him play more than 20 or 21 snaps before Saturday's game against UMass. He played 26. He played more snaps than anybody. I think he had 26. I want to say Jake had 22, and Matthew Downing worked the entire fourth quarter and had 19. Of course, Jake was a perfect 5 of 5 and led the touchdown drive. Never even faced the third down when Jake Fromm was in the game, and he was out after the first series of the second half. Justin played 5 series, had 4 touchdown drives and a field goal drive. Would have been a touchdown. Demetrius Robertson dropped the would-be touchdown pass in the end zone. And then Matthew Downing took care of it in the fourth quarter. But Justin was named the SEC Freshman of the Week for his performance. In addition to his 5 of 8 passing performance, he also led the team in rushing with 100 yards. I think a game that Justin needed. I think it was good for his confidence, certainly good for his morale. Kirby's told us all year that he's working hard in practice and he's earning the trust of the staff and his teammates. You did see a couple of instances where he looked like a freshman. He threw an ill-advised bubble screen that a better team would have picked off and ran for a touchdown, and he took another sack. But you can see the growth. You can see the growth right before your eyes. Now, he's obviously not where Jake Fromm is in terms of the ability to manage the offense, run the offense, call the plays at the line of scrimmage, get through all the progressions, and lead the team. But, boy, you see a lot of talent for just a true freshman. Um, I think the Cam Newton comparisons are certainly accurate. Remember, Cam had gone through junior college before he went to Auburn, and was a 21, 22-year-old guy. Justin's a true freshman. So early in his development, exciting for Georgia football. Doesn't change how Kirby manages the offense in the games against Georgia Tech or against Alabama, I don't think, but I think it probably, with the confidence that Justin got and the game experience that he got, makes him that much more valuable if he gets called upon. I also think we'll see Justin in short yardage and red zone situations. He's got a really valuable role there. Tim Tebow's talked a lot about that because that's how Tim Tebow contributed to the Gators' 2006 national championship, and then Tebow came back 2 years later and won the title as the starter. And you could see that with Justin Fields. I could see that happening where Justin, has accepted this role to help Georgia because they've really struggled in the short yardage and goal line situations. And Justin just gives them such a weapon that they don't have. Nobody else on the team can do what he does. And of course, right now we're at that stage of the season where all the Georgia players are trying to figure out how they can help the team win a championship because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take all hands on deck. One, to get through this game against Georgia Tech, and then two, to finish it and go to Atlanta and get revenge on Alabama, beat the Tide. You saw on Saturday on the SEC Nation set, Sony Michel and Nick Chubb were surprised guests, and they both predicted that Georgia would win. Now, they were asked. They didn't just come on there trumpeting it, looking to run their mouths or make noise, but they were asked, what do you predict? And, they stood behind their guys. Now, that's a little different. To me, that's a little different than what the South Carolina player did earlier this year. I mean, Sony and Nick are invested in the Georgia program, and they're still very, very close to that game, having just played it last year. Oh, and by the way, they're significant. The South Carolina guy, I forget his name now. He's, that was predicting the win. It just kind of came out of left field. He offered it up. It's like, I don't even know who asked him, if anybody. So I don't think Georgia fans need to worry too much about that. I think that's just two players that believe in their teammates and want to send a positive message, that they're still watching and they're still supporting them. And I thought that was a great moment for Georgia to have those guys on campus. I thought Kirby did a nice job on television with Tim Tebow. I don't know if you saw him giving Tebow a jersey. I thought that was pretty cool. Kirby was trying to get Tebow to put it on. Tebow wasn't going for that, but it was a cool exchange. A lot of mutual respect there. You think about it, and Kirby's playing era is actually closer to Tebow. See, Tebow was 06 to 09, so he's 9 years removed from the 2018 class. Kirby finished his career in 99. Kirby's actually closer to the Tebow era as a player than some of the current players. So, but you can tell Kirby Smart's got a lot of respect for Tim and competed against him in an SEC title game as Bama's defensive coordinator. So that was kind of a neat moment, I thought, to see Kirby on television interacting with Tebow, talking about the program. They did a really nice special on DeAndre Swift. And, that's important because I think Georgia's flown under the radar. I was surprised at SEC Media Day in Atlanta. Georgia didn't have any first-team All-SEC players on offense. And, today I put out a tweet and some people are, you're just kissing up to Georgia or whatever. And I said, I don't know why Kirby Smart wouldn't be a candidate for SEC Coach of the Year. When I think about it, I mean, he didn't have anybody make first-team All-SEC on offense, and yet they won the East, and they're 10-1 and ranked in the top 5. So if you don't have any first-team players, you must be doing something right as a coach, especially when you look at everything they lost. Big senior class, SEC Defensive Player of the Year gone, 2 NFL running backs gone, go-to receiver Javon Wims gone, 5-year starting front 7 on defense gone, half-year secondary gone. And yet here's Georgia, 10-1, still with all their goals ahead of them. And I think Kirby's managed the team really well. No off-the-field issues. Why not? Why not Kirby Smart for SEC Coach of the Year? I mean, great for Dan Mullen, but are you rewarding Dan Mullen because he's done a good job or because the last guy was just so awful? How many years is this for Mark Stoops? 7, and you're still losing to Tennessee? Going to give him Coach of the Year if he goes and gets owned by Tennessee? I have a hard time with that. Maybe had Kentucky won that game and still be in position for New Year's Six Bowl. but they fell flat. They didn't respond to adversity. So anyway, that's my point on that. I want to take a look and see if you have any questions here. I'm looking at the headline about Monty Rice, Cade Mays, Ben Cleveland. So the injury report today, Kirby said Monty Rice is probably out. Indicated that he wasn't going to practice today. For those of you that don't know, Monty was a designated team captain for the UMass game, but he hurt himself in warm-ups when he was planting and cutting, and he was wearing a boot on the sideline, didn't play. And Kirby today said probably not going to be available. And that's costly because the inside linebackers are really important when you play an option-oriented team. And Monty had led the team in tackles, despite missing a game with a hyperextended knee earlier this year. He had really been active. Probably, I would say, of the inside linebackers, he'd been having the best year. So that's costly. Cade Mays is not practicing today. Cade has a shoulder injury. Kirby said he was questionable day to day. Kendall Baker likely out. And then Ben Cleveland. Ben has been playing the last two games. He didn't play against UMass because he's on the punt team, and Georgia never punted. But he's still battling to get back to 100%. I'll be curious to see who they start at guard, if it's Ben or Trey Hill. I know that Kirby would like Ben to be as close to 100% as possible. But right now, there is a lack of depth on the line with what Cade's going through with the shoulder and with Kendall Baker being out. I'm going to take a look and see if there's some questions here. What about Ledbetter? Ledbetter's fine. Ledbetter was out there talking with the media today. No issues there. Let's take a look here. Chris Collins says Kirby won't push him to come back until the SEC championship game. I don't know if it's a matter of Kirby or if it's a matter of the team doctor. You know, the team doctor is the one that lets the coach know, hey, this guy's a go or not a go. I think Kirby pretty much defaults to what the medical staff says. Kid can play, he's going to want him to play. Georgia Tech is not a team to overlook here. Let's take a look here. Better not let those wide receivers get behind him 6 points automatically, Bobby Bryant says. Does Coach McGill help us more to prepare for the triple option offense? And Burrow wants to know. There's only so much you can do to prepare for it. You try to do your best to replicate it in practice. The trick is always that the option teams have impeccable timing because it's their primary offense. They do it all the time. So it's hard to ask a scout team, to do this for one period every week or for 1 week during the spring session. And that's really the difficulty, is that you're not practicing it as much as the team you're playing. So your scout team is not going to be able to operate it with the same level of speed and efficiency. Typically, now, DeAndre Walker told us today that last year's scout team ran the Georgia Tech offense better than Georgia Tech did. Now, I don't know how much of that was DeAndre being funny, but he wasn't smiling. I mean, I think he was serious. I think he was trying to pay the scout team a compliment, and that's important to get a good look at it. The Georgia players made it really clear today that they're really focused on this. I mean, they're upset that the last time Georgia Tech came to Sanford Stadium, the last two times Georgia Tech came to Sanford Stadium, they beat Georgia, but they clipped parts of the hedge, and that's upset the players. Apparently, there's video of that being played in the training room. There's pictures of the Georgia Tech guys with hedge in their hands. And the Georgia players say they're irritated by that. So, will Zamir White play this year if you go to the college football playoffs? Jody wants to know. No, he's had 2 ACL injuries in the last 2 years. This is going to be a long rehab. I would be surprised if he has contact in the spring. My guess would be, with an injury like this, you're hoping that maybe Zamir is ready to go at the start of next year's fall camp. And Chris Collins points it out, the scout team can't run the option, like Georgia Tech does. Just logging on, Chris Book wants to know, is Monty hurt bad out for Georgia Tech and Bama? Kirby says that he's likely out this week, Chris. Don't know about the Alabama game yet. I'm not sure about the recruits on Saturday. David Hill wants 4 more great games. No doubt. I mean, this Georgia football season has really exceeded my expectations. When they lost at LSU, you wondered, okay, now what? Because there was a lot of guys in positions of leadership that hadn't been leaders before. And when you've got such an influx of talented freshmen, sometimes that's a tricky locker room because those freshmen are here to play, and it's hard for them to take a back seat and defer to the captains or defer to the seniors. And for the seniors, because you had such a strong leadership group the year before, these guys haven't necessarily had a lot of experience leading. Um, that's another area where Jake Fromm is invaluable. Just what he brings as a leader, what he brings to the clubhouse, what he brings to the huddle. The position by nature needs a leader, but because Jake has been in those battles, he's 22-3 as a starter. Uh, that makes a big difference. That's one more reason why Jake's in charge. I want to go to this chart in here. Georgia does such a great job with their game notes. Just to give you kind of a reminder of how young this team is, because you don't really think about it. You see the same G on the helmet, the same stadium, and it's so easy to just look like you would the NFL, right? Like it's a continuation of last year. But it's not. I mean, that's what's so amazing about what Kirby and George have done this year, going 10-1, is this is a really young team. So as I look at the guys with the most consecutive starts, senior captain Lamont Galliard has 39 on offense. Safety J.R. Reed has 26. And then, boom, number 3 on the list, Jake Fromm. He's only a sophomore. And right now he has the 3rd longest string of consecutive starts. That tells you just how important he is, what he brings as far as the consistency and the continuity. And I don't know if you had a chance to read my story today. I talked with Jake after the Georgia Tech game, and just so you know, we'd love to talk to Justin Fields, but Georgia has a policy that they don't let their freshmen talk. So if you ever have wondered why you don't hear from Justin Fields or see him talking, that's a Kirby Smart policy. And of course, the media respects Kirby's policy, so we're not going to talk to the kid. But that's why you don't see any freshmen talking. But you take a look at this, and Jake is one of those very few consistents. I mean, there's 2 other guys with the string of consecutive starts here. Solomon Kinley at offensive guard has 11 straight starts, and Isaiah Wilson. And Isaiah's a redshirt freshman. I mean, for goodness sakes, that's how young this team is. So I always tell the Georgia fans when I meet, I say, hey, man, just realize that what they've done is amazing and hard to do with a team that's this young and this type of expectations. But I think Kirby's really managed it well. And he said after the last game, somebody asked him what he was most impressed with. And he said the buy-in. And he said, a lot of times teams this time of year kind of ready to get the season over with, right? I mean, these kids, they don't do this for a profession. I mean, they still go to class. They still have lives. Remember what you were doing when you were 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. They got families they haven't seen. I mean, the schedule is tough. It's a grind. But the fact that Georgia still has something to play for, the fact that we're starting to see these young players, I think, buy into their roles. And, Kirby points it out. There's guys on defense that only play on first down. There's other guys on defense that only play on third down. At some point in the fall, you realize that maybe you're not going to start, or maybe you're not going to get 20 or 30 snaps. Or in the case of Justin Fields, maybe you're not going to get 10 snaps every game. And how you manage that, how you handle that, has a lot to do with chemistry in a locker room. And the Justin Fields buy-in to the role is probably as big as anything because, Justin is the leader of that 2018 class. And he's got other freshmen around him that are having to buy into roles and maybe not the amount of playing time they wanted. And how Justin reacts influences everybody around him. And so if you're looking for what's happened since the bye week, it's that Georgia got punched in the nose and looked in the mirror and saw themselves bleeding. And I think the kids realized they need each other. Everybody's got to be in. It was a sick feeling for that whole team, from the coaching staff to the offense to the defense. I've said it before. It was a complete team loss. And what that did was tighten this group up. and made them realize they need each other to win. Everybody's got to do their job. Everybody's got to play their role, because if you don't, you're going to have another LSU loss. And that was a kick in the gut. Georgia players had 2 weeks, to suck on that loss, and it did not taste good. And Jake Fromm, probably more than anybody, led Georgia out of that with his mindset. And, again, getting back to that article that's up on Jake today and that video, Jake surprised, said, we got a chip on our shoulder. And he said, we're getting pretty dangerous. And, and Jake had an edge in that interview with his tone and the way he talked about his team that I hadn't heard before. It's almost like he turned a corner. He went from the guy that was just always worried about saying the right thing and the nice thing to sounding like a guy that was a little ticked off with something to prove, and had the confidence to say it, had the confidence to say we are getting pretty dangerous, had the confidence to say we have a chip on our shoulder. And when Jake Fromm is talking like that and presenting himself like that, that tells you can just sense that the team is behind him, and Georgia's sick and tired of hearing that they don't have a chance, and that, everybody's just writing Alabama in. And now they know they got to take care of Tech, and they know that, Tech's red hot right now. They won 4 games in a row. They know that Georgia has not beat Georgia Tech at Sanford Stadium since 2012. And Ledbetter said that's all the motivation they need. So I think Georgia's in a good place psychologically. Obviously, they're not in an ideal position physically with the injuries to Monty Rice and Cade Mays. But from a psychological standpoint, I really like where this team is at. And I think that UMass team was really healthy. When everybody gets to play like that, the mood in the locker room just goes up. Everybody's feeling good. Everybody came in ready to work on Georgia Tech yesterday. Ledbetter said Kirby broke his own team rule. The 24-hour rule was thrown out the window this week. Kirby said, hey, guys, got to get in that Tech mindset. And, that's one thing. I don't think another thing that I would point out to people to appreciate and realize, and I got to remind myself of this, just, Kirby's only 42 years old. I mean, Nick Saban's like 67. Think about that. He's 25 years younger than Saban. So, yeah, Saban's going to be around a few more years. But in Kirby Smart, at Georgia, with the resources this program has and the momentum this program has, you got a chance to have like a Bobby Bowden kind of coach, like a Frank Beamer kind of coach, a guy that could be here for decades. That's pretty awesome. And I've said it before, if I were buying stock in a college program, I'd be buying stock in Georgia football. You look at the high school talent that they have here. And by the way, what a great job Georgia has done with their education system when you compare it to the other states or in the Southeast around it. I look at some of these high schools and they look like small college campuses. However Georgia's government has gone about it, get this type of school system, kudos. And so you're producing kids not only that are good in football, but kids that can academically handle the challenges that Georgia now has. I think people know how hard it is to get into this school. It's ranked 13th in the country among public institutions. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's Stanford, but it's one of the top 13 public universities in the country. And it shatters every stereotype that ignorant people that don't do their homework might have about the South or about Georgia. Great school system, great schools. Hell, I'll throw it out there. You got good roads too while you're at it. But getting back to the football, when you've got all that good stuff going on, when you've got good schools and you're producing all this in-state talent and you've got good academics to sell, and the campus is obviously beautiful, and now you've built this indoor facility that's really on par with anyone's. In Sanford Stadium, what an environment. What a package. And a 42-year-old coach that played here, that's already played for a national title in his first 3 years, that already has an SEC championship, that can go out and hire the best coaches because he understands how to be a good coach to work for. Georgia's in a really good place, man. Like I said, I don't know what's going to happen this year. And I'm not writing him off because I've seen a lot happen covering college football the last 25 years. The odds are against them. There's no doubt about it. But they've already accomplished enough for this year to be a success by winning the East Division, in my mind. I think they need to beat Georgia Tech. I'll be honest. If they lost to Georgia Tech, that would put a damper on the season. But they take care of business against Georgia Tech, and everything after that is icing on the cake. It really is. When you look at the youth that Georgia has and all they lost and all they're going to have coming back. Take a look here. James Crump, Georgia will have more national championships than Clemson in 5 years. Probably, but, give Dabo Swinney credit. He's done a remarkable job as well in building Clemson. And give you a little background on Dabo, maybe more than you want. But Woody McCorvey is kind of the guy behind the scenes. Woody McCorvey was Gene Stallings' right-hand man at Alabama. What you're seeing at Clemson from an infrastructure and family mode mindset is pretty much circa Gene Stallings' Alabama 90s. And Dabo's taken that to the ACC essentially, and they've done a great job recruiting. And their facilities were huge for Clemson. And Dabo's another guy that I knew when he was an assistant at Alabama, that just a quality guy. Kirby, a quality guy. These are good people. And that resonates with recruits now more than ever. They don't have to put on an act. It's who they are. Are there any juniors that I see skipping their senior year for the NFL on the Georgia roster? I don't know. Is McCole Hardman possibly a candidate? I don't know what type of 40 time he would turn. I think a lot of him. Let me take a look here. Anybody else? Let's see, not off the top of my head. I wouldn't think so. I would think J.R. Reed would want to stick around another year. He's got NFL talent for sure. I would think Tyler Clark probably learned a little lesson. Trent Thompson. Maybe McCole. How about Blankenship? Would that be a surprise? I mean, he's had a heck of a year. I don't think so, though. None that I would feel strongly enough to say it'd be more likely than not. Joe Burke, that's the same question. Rumor that Justin Fields is transferring. Okay, look. I'll be honest with you guys. You don't do yourself any favors by repeating rumors. Rumors from who? Did Justin Fields look like a guy that wanted to transfer to you Saturday? Sometimes when people repeat things, and it's rivals that are starting this, teams don't want Justin Fields to be hanging around, right? Because Jake may go pro after his junior year. So they start these rumors, and they start them on Twitter, and they put them on your message board under these fake names, fake dog 98, red dog 98. You could be an Alabama fan. Don't bite on this stuff, man. It's okay to give your program the benefit of the doubt. I don't know how much you've been listening, but I just said a lot about Georgia. Why do you want to leave that? I mean, why would Justin Fields want to leave the opportunities that he has ahead of himself here? Look at Tim Tebow. Nobody was saying, Tebow. Cam Newton didn't do what he did at Auburn until his junior year. I mean, Justin Fields is developing, and he's working with people that he likes and that he trusts, and he's got a team around him. And Georgia's not going anywhere. He's going to have a great supporting cast for the next 3, 4, 5 years. You go somewhere else, you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what kind of locker room you're walking into. You don't know what type of animosity that guy that's already there is going to have towards you. And you don't know what kind of deal they've made with the next quarterback coming in. I think Kirby has effectively been honest and straight with Fields and his parents throughout the whole process. And while they might not always like what Kirby says, they know that Kirby's been honest, and he's been honest with the media. He's been honest with you. You don't want to hear that the plan is there is no plan, but that's the truth. Kirby's going to manage each game in and of itself. Look, against UMass, the situation presented itself for him to play Justin in the first quarter and give him more snaps than Jake Fromm. Great. It might happen against Georgia Tech. I don't know. But I just, the whole Fields talk, I understand why people could speculate, but there's a big difference between speculating and starting rumors or repeating rumors. So I would just tell the Georgia fan base to be skeptical of rumors Give your coach and your program the benefit of the doubt, because I think Kirby's probably earned that. I think he's done a pretty good job with that, actually. Looking more questions here. Let's see here. Who will redshirt? I'm sorry, I'm not prepared for that question. I haven't gone through the roster to see who's redshirting this season. I know there's a few guys. Kirby's tried to play a lot of guys, as many guys as he can. Georgia recruits a caliber of player that, as Kirby's pointed out, you don't necessarily want a redshirt because, as he said, how many fifth-year seniors do you see across the country that are major contributors? I mean, there are some here and there, potential transfers, maybe guys that have taken a medical redshirt because of injuries. But it's not like it used to be where you just hold a guy back, right? You want to get those guys out there. You want to get them playing. You want to get them in the mix. Certainly, Kirby works guys in practices to get them prepared to play. That's why a guy like Jordan Davis could go from not even making the travel squad in September being a starter in October, because Kirby works the guys and gives them enough work to give these freshmen an opportunity to grow and mature in practices. And that's how Georgia is able to have guys emerging even now. I mean, every game it seems like, all of a sudden now Robert Beal is just knocking the snot out of people. Every time I look up, he's beating up somebody. Adam Anderson had a big play. We saw Otis Reese make his first start a couple games ago, and now he's playing situationally. See Brenton Cox at number one on defense. He'll flash in there, make a play every now and then. We're starting to see more and more guys emerge because of the way Kirby grooms these guys and works them in practice. Going back to your questions here. Here I'm on the Ingles on the Beat segment. I want to mention my sponsor. Certainly, we appreciate what Ingles does for DawgNation to bring all this to you. They're obviously behind the Georgia football program. And, we work hard at DawgNation, and we appreciate the feedback we get. I'd like to encourage you also, go to our DawgNation forum. Jeff Sentel's in there a lot. Jeff does a lot with recruiting. I go in there a lot, and I'll post links and respond to messages that you have. You can also follow me on Twitter and shoot me a direct message at Mike Griffith 32. I had a few conversations with fans just recently this last weekend, at length, just Twitter direct messages as far as, hey, you wrote this. What did that mean? What do you think about that? And I don't mind sharing my insights and my opinions with you. Done this a long time and really enjoy covering college football and enjoy interacting with fans. A lot of times fans bring things up to me from a perception standpoint that I may not realize, or from a perspective standpoint, having followed Georgia for so many years intensely, as this passionate fan base does, they can give me anecdotes and stories. I've seen Georgia from the Auburn angle. I've seen it from the Alabama angle. I've seen it from the angle. Now I'm obviously seeing it up close at every press conference, at every media availability. But anything that I can get from fans, whether it's here on Facebook or on Twitter, follow me at Mike Griffith 32. I always appreciate those opinions. I want to wrap it up here. Let's see what we have here. Thanks, Byron Walker. Nice compliment for DawgNation. Fabulous kicker from my hometown that was there for the Auburn game, says Jill Burke. Jill, put that name on there. The only controversy was created by fans. Mark Godfrey says, Tim Baird wants to know, is Nate McBride ever going to see the field as a linebacker? I don't know the answer to that. I can just tell you that Kirby is valid. He plays the guys that are best. And I have a hard time arguing with him. I have a hard time second guessing Kirby on much. Still wonder about the late field goal against Auburn, but I guarantee you there's a reason, and I'm not sure what it is, but there is a reason that goes beyond wanting to add 3 points. Kirby has a rhyme and a reason for everything he does. He's one of the most meticulous coaches that I've ever been around, and I listen very carefully and very closely to his press conferences because the answers are all there. You got to listen, though. He may not make it the most obvious way, but he's not going to lie to you. But he's got a point to everything he says. Do I think Fromm and Fields will both play? And Sue King wants to know. I do think they'll both play against Georgia Tech. I'm not sure when and what the circumstance will be, but I think Justin has secured a role on this team. But Jake is far and away the leader and the key to how far Georgia goes. they need his leadership. They need his poise because the rest of the team feeds off him. So that'll do it for today. This has been the Ingles on the Beat segment. Again, I encourage you, follow me on Twitter at MikeGriffith32. Read the stories. Chip's back there on the Georgia campus hammering out a story. He'll have something up pretty soon as well, and I'll have a Kirby Smart video up as soon as I get somewhere where I can post a story. So everybody have a great Monday and enjoy your Thanksgiving week in the Georgia Tech